Hey guys, what's up? Shelby Jones coming at you from Jones & for CrossFit. We've been going over a couple single leg modifications for the squat and some posterior work, deadlifts and pulling. Today we're gonna go over variations of the squat. So yeah, basically we're gonna take you through the setup on how to do the back squat. To do this properly, obviously you have to be in comfortable clothes. Bryson is getting ready to do some work, so he's gotta unleash the quads. So restricted clothing is probably not a good thing to do, especially if you're trying to get full depth on the squat. So we've already done some work on the wall. Hopefully you've gotten your athletes to the point where they can maintain that lumbar curve and keep their chest up all the way down to where they get the hip crease below the knee crease. So now we're gonna load the back squat. Setup is basically the same as doing an air squat, getting braced before you take the bar out of the rack, and then taking a couple steps back from the rack, unless you have a monolift. So going through that bracing sequence, as always, making sure you're connected in the core, glutes are on, back's tight, and lifting with your legs out of the rack. Whenever we're getting set up on the back squat, it's always important also to make sure that you have an even rack. Sometimes I see people a little offset, and they'll come in like this and get set up and they think they're good. Obviously, my squat's gonna be a little off if I'm set up like that. So measuring, making sure you're pretty even on the bar whenever you're getting set up. If we have time today too, we'll go over high bar back squat and low bar back squat. So measuring, I normally go about a thumb's width or thumb's length inside the knurl, right here. Grab the bar underneath, and before I take the bar out of the rack, bracing, midline's on, hips are on, bring my hips underneath the bar, and then standing up, taking a couple steps back. The grip here, I like to keep a close grip, especially with high bar, to help keep the upper back tight. A lot of times I see people go a little bit wider and they lose that tension in the upper back, causes their chest to drop whenever they get into the bottom of the squat and lose tension, which is not good. Okay, so Bryson, let's go ahead and get set up. Core tight, lifting with the hips, 2 steps back, getting in a good squat stance. And then, you notice that where he initiates the movement at, it's gonna be at the hips. It's not gonna be at the knees, right? So hips back, there you go. Hip crease below knee crease, nice and deep, and then right back up. Okay, let's do another one. Pause on the bottom just like you did before. Leaning back with the hips. You notice the weight here too on his feet. He's not on his toes. He's got the weight pretty evenly distributed, and on the way up, he's gonna keep the weight on the whole foot also, okay? Whatever happens, whenever we get the weight too far forward, too far back, obviously that's gonna cause us to either miss the lift or work a lot harder to make the lift. So finding that groove and really practicing this before adding weight, make sure you can do that. If you add weight and you have bad form already, it's gonna make it a lot harder. Okay, go again. And up. All right. Let's go ahead and show them one. Some common faults. Knee initiated, coming onto the toes, and then dropping the chest. So knee initiated, and then back up. How'd that feel?
Awful.
Yeah. So the reason we always say to try to lead back with the hips are a lot stronger as a joint than the knees are, and you don't want any extra wear and tear on the knees. Getting jumper's knee, or patellar tendonitis is not fun. It takes a long time to come back from also. So being sure that you're loading those hips first. These are a lot stronger than your quads, your hamstrings and glutes. You really want to be working there. A good way to get people to stop that, either tell them, hey, hips first, make sure you're going back with the hips first, giving them a tactile cue, or blocking them and making sure that they're not leaning forward with their knees. So actually blocking them, having them sit back, which is good, all right? Sometimes you might have to go a little bit further, take them back to the basics, have them go back to the wall, make sure those knees are staying back. How about losing tension in the bottom, relaxing that upper back, letting that chest drop. Okay, the weight's forward, and normally whenever this happens, this is hard for him to actually do improperly. His back's strong and he's used to doing it right. What normally would happen here is that the butt would come up first. That's better. Butt would come up first, and then it turns into a good morning, which is horrible for that posterior chain. Go ahead and rack the bar, Bryson. So there's a couple different things that go wrong there. Turning it into a good morning, really loading the back, taking the back through that extension and flexion with a load on it. You don't want to do that unless you're trying to do a good morning. What else on that one? What do you think? I mean, that's pretty much it. Coming on the toes. The proper way to bail on a back squat. Let's just show them that real quick. And then hips forward, out from underneath it. Sometimes I see people get down to the bottom, they're down here, and then all of a sudden they're like, ugh. Okay. There's a lot more potential for injury there than there is just getting out from underneath the bar. So practice that with lightweight. If you have to, whenever you're working up to higher weight, just bail. Unless you have a spotter, just make sure you communicate with your spotter that, hey, I'm gonna try to make this lift or I'm going to dump it. There's a pineapple under the sea. Oh. All right, so front squat. First thing we gotta figure out is the rack. I am a big advocate of external rotation, especially when it comes to the front rack, winding up those shoulders and keeping that upper back tight, especially with the front squat. This is going to be very dependent on mobility, so we'll be posting some front rack openers later on. Bryson has pretty good mobility, so we're just going to work with what he has going on. If you have problems, drop a comment and we'll do more videos later on. So for right now, what I want to focus on is just the external rotation of the arm, right? So if you externally rotate your arm right here, you bend your elbow, bring it up, and then you externally rotate your wrist. That's about where your front rack should be. Wrist, elbow, shoulder. So your shoulder's slightly outside your shoulder, your elbow is slightly outside your shoulder, and your wrist is slightly outside your elbow. Okay, so that's good external rotation. It's gonna wind up the tissue in the upper back and keep you from rounding. What I see a lot of times is people come into the front rack right here, and it's extremely hard to keep tension in the upper back, especially if you have weight trying to pull you forward. So, Bryson, let's go ahead and get you set up. Good. Okay, you see here too, shoulder, elbow, wrist, okay? For the front squat, if you have the mobility to, try to keep a full grip on the bar, but if not, it's okay to let some of those fingers roll off and not have a full grip on it. Practicing this way will actually help with mobility and that grip. Okay, taking it out the same way we did the back squat, so lifting with the legs, not the shoulders of the back. Taking a couple steps back, getting to that squat stance. And we're actually, there you go. We're gonna try to get these elbows up a little bit higher, keep that rib cage tacked down. You notice he's not flaring here. And again, just like we did on the back squat, we're gonna hinge at the hips, but maybe not as much as we did on the back squat, because it's important to keep an upright torso here. So what he's gonna do is just break at the hips a little, and then drop those hips straight down. Boom. You notice his elbows did not move at all. They did not drop. He still has his weight on the whole foot, and then coming right up out of the bottom. Good. All right, let's do one more. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead. This might be a little hard to do. Let's go ahead and re-rack it. We're gonna change the grip up. I'm gonna try to give you all an example of what it looks like to have your hands in too narrow. This might be a little weird too. There you go. All right. Does that feel weird? Just a little bit. All right, so we're gonna see if it's a little bit harder for him to keep his elbows up. In this, I might have to hang from the bar and jump on it, jump up and down or whatever, but we'll see if there's a difference in his back position. Go ahead. So even here, shoulders a little bit more forward. If I was to push down on it, no, steady, strong like bull. All right, back up. Okay, which one felt better?
Definitely wider.
Wider?
Yeah.
Wound up.
I feel a lot in my shoulders right here.
Nice. Again, depending on mobility, you want to be able to have that external rotation, have a full grip on the bar. That's going to translate over better to the other movements like the thruster, clean and jerk, you know, anything like that. So we're also going to show you how to bail for the front squat, just like we did on the back squat. So we're just going to go through the movement. Bryson's going to act like he can't make this 135. Want you to see where he's at and what he does with his arms whenever he does bail, okay? pretty simple. I think bailing on the front squat is a lot easier than the back squat. If you get pinned in the bottom of the front squat too, even to where your elbows come down and you're stuck like this, you're still holding onto the bar, again, all you have to do is let that bar drop, okay? Getting out from underneath it. Try to avoid doing the whole turtle on the way up if you can. Basically a turtle whenever you get down there. You have that good position, you get down, the weight gets heavy, and all of a sudden so that turns into more of a back workout than a core and leg. Okay, so avoid that. That's when you should dump it, even though you can make the lift. But yeah, that's gonna be it for now. Hopefully this helps you guys out with the movements. If you have any questions, just drop into the comments. We'll go over those in a later video, and then we will be doing overhead squat next, so stay tuned.